first plenary meeting, a plenary discussion roundtable of the GLAC 2014. My name is Klaus Vogel. I am working in ISA and I am the chairman of the IAF Committee for the Liaison with International Organizations and Developing Countries. I'm the moderator of this roundtable this afternoon, and this roundtable is the first in a row of 3 roundtables, and it is dealing with the issue of the market for space-based services. So our roundtable will try to look into the issues which are related to the marketplace for all the activities which are around space applications. And the other roundtables will deal with either specific elements of space applications, as with the issue of climate change, and they will deal with institutional and governance issues, as the last roundtable will do, which is composed of heads of space agencies. Now, for this roundtable, our roundtable, we have been able to put together a panel of really high-ranking personalities from the various areas covering space applications. So we have personalities from telecommunications, from navigation, from Earth observation. We have an association for the users, and we have space transportation, which is also a market, but also an enabler for satellite applications. So I would like you to welcome with me our panel, which is composed of, and I go from right to left, Mr. Michel Rosen, Director General Eutelsat. We have Mr. James Kimmel, Head of Government Affairs in Inmarsat. We have Carlo Destorides, Executive Director of the GSA in Prague. We then have Mr. Philippe Pham, the Managing Director of Spotimage, followed by Mr. Marcello Baranesi, President of eGEOS. We then have Mr. Miguel Belomora, CEO of Deimos Space. Then Stefan Demay, the Secretary General of EURISI. And finally, last but not least, we have Jacques Breton from Ariane Espace. So I would say quick applause for our panelists. And now we will conduct the first phase of this panel by asking the participants for short introductory remarks about the marketplace as they see it from their respective perspectives. And following that, we will go into an interactive debate on specific issues related to the marketplace, reacting on the one or the other comment which was made, the assessments which were presented to us, followed also then by a question and answer session from the audience. We will have 90 minutes, and as I said, we will try to get as much information, assessment and interaction from this panel for you, the audience. So the first, I would like to provide an assessment of the marketplace as it is Michel de Rosen, the Director General from Eutelsat.
Thank you for this introduction. I will try and be short in my comments. My first message is that space-based services have already changed the day-to-day life of humanity. I never heard him say that, but I'm told that one day President Bush, 43rd, was interviewed and asked, what do you think about satellites? And he said, we don't need satellites, we already have weather forecasts on TV. Now, of course, how do we have weather forecast on TV because of satellites? In fact, there are so many things that we now get for granted that people think they have always been here and that they're easy to get. From weather forecasts to the way to fight disasters, to of course television, to internet, all these come now easily thanks to satellites. More specifically, I remember one day visiting a former French Prime Minister who was Prime Minister when General de Gaulle was President. He was called Michel Debré. And I was interviewing him as a student about another topic. And he told me that when he was Prime Minister, his staff came to see him and they said, Mr. Prime Minister, as you know in France, we have one TV channel and we have now the technological possibility to start a second channel. But we need you to decide that before we do it. And he said to this staff, he says, no. My answer is no. The French are too lazy. They have one TV channel, that's enough. If we give them the second one, they will not work enough. Okay. The world has changed. There are now we have 5,000 television channels on our satellites. 5,000. Who can even count them? Okay. The world has changed, and it has changed because of satellites. The truth, the same thing can be said about the internet. The internet is expanding extremely fast. Without satellites, it would not be able to reach the people that it can reach who live far from cities, on mountains, deserts, or even sometimes suburban areas. So, my first message is, again, that space solutions have already changed the way day-to-day life of people is happening. Okay. Now, let me tell you something that not everyone realizes. The very specific model of the satellite is related to the fact that the cost of the services do not increase with distance. In other words, and contrary to the situation of terrestrial telecommunications, where the marginal cost of the infrastructure deployment, rapidly grows with distance, in our case, the cost is exactly the same, whether you serve someone who is in Algeria or in Morocco, or if you go more south in sub-Saharan Africa. You just need to launch your satellite, and once it's up there, it can serve 10 million people, 20 million people, 50 million people. The cost is the same. Okay. So this is the main reason why satellites are so good for developing, we now say, emerging markets. You know that our satellites are positioned at 36,000 kilometers from the Earth. This means that with 3 satellites, you cover the whole globe. So it's an extraordinarily productive way to serve people and companies. So that is my second message. I'm trying to make my introduction short. There is another dimension to satellites that is worth noting. Because of this technological strength, the satellites are very good to provide universal service. You don't have to choose. Sometimes governments are tempted to fight freedom. With satellites, you can in fact serve everybody without having to choose. Okay. So that is the second message, is that satellites are a remarkable tool for emerging markets in countries. My third and last message is that satellites will heavily contribute to the development of the interconnected world. Now, there will be a growing convergence between TVs and internet that will be supported by the new generation of satellites, which will bring an extended collection of services. Let me give you here one illustration of that. Not long ago, the previous generation of satellites could provide for broadband only 1 or 2 megabits. The new generation of satellites, called high-throughput satellites, provide for individuals more than 20 megabits and for companies more than 50 megabits. This is a huge change in dimension, and by the way, for the same price for consumers. Okay. So, in the world of where people want more and more, satellites have changed, have gone from this level to this level, and we're already working on the next generation, which will provide even more broadband to people wherever they are, whatever they effectively need. So, Mr. Moderator, this is the end of my introduction. I would just add one comment. You know the difference between ignorance and indifference. The answer is, I don't know and I don't care. Why do I say this? Because very many people do not know what satellites can do. Okay. They simply don't know it. And because of that, there is a lot of ignorance and there is indifference because people don't even know what to ask for because they don't know that satellites will be able to satisfy their needs. So I applaud the organizers of this event because this event with others can help people know that satellites are a remarkable tool to build the world of the future. Thank you very much.
One day, US Secretary Treasurer was asked, in one word, how's the world economy doing? And he said, good. And in 2 words, he said, not good. Okay? I would say, no, they don't know. Most of them don't know enough. They don't know that our satellites are 36,000 kilometers. They think they are 300 kilometers. They don't know that we serve 20,000 television channels, our competitors and ourselves. They don't know that we can bring very effective broadband service to people who need it. They don't know that we do weather forecasts. They don't know that we fight disasters, even when all the terrestrial technologies are out of order. So most people don't know. I would say we probably have to blame ourselves. It means we have not been effective enough in terms of communication. But it goes, I think, one step further. In many countries, there is now an obsession about fiber. Many elected officials and many citizens say, we want fibers. Fibers are fantastic technology, but if you want to fiber the whole world, that will be an extraordinarily expensive proposition and a huge waste of financial resources. And so you will notice that not many elected officials, not many governments have the courage to say to their people, we want everyone to be connected. For some people it will be fibers, for other people it will be ADSL, and for other people it will be satellite solutions. In other words, that the best cocktail for the future is a cocktail of a few technologies, not a mono-technological world. So we obviously have, and UNESCO can help, we all have work to do to explain that to the officials, to the media, so that then public opinions also understand.
Thank you very much. Let's turn to James now from Inmarsat.
Thank you very much. Most of my reading over the last few weeks has been to a very, very small child. So the intent has been to put her to sleep and to snore a little bit soundly. So I'll use that as a benchmark here and hope to have some measure of unsuccess this time. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates. Thank you for inviting Inmarsat to participate here. We're going to share some views from the perspective of mobile satellite services operator, which is a very particular sort of satellite system. Our activities start by the commissioning of amongst the most advanced, powerful commercial telecommunication satellites ever made, launcher rockets, insurance, quite a lot of it, looking to recoup our investment some years into the future, based on our understanding of our long-term user requirements, based on market estimations that we have to make today. We are accountable for our actions to the stock market in the most public way possible, each and every quarter. As a general comment, providing global connectivity from space is challenging, but our outlook is optimistic, and looking ahead, we have every reason to be confident. We are to some extent interdependent with those upstream to us in the production chain, represented here today, in the launcher and the satellite manufacturing communities. By their very nature, these activities are strategic and long-term, with deep government involvement to energize and support research and development, which our users will require, perhaps a decade from now. So today's investments will be realized by our users as technologies that they employ in their daily lives, perhaps 10 or 15 years hence. As a commercial operator, we require access to reliable launch vehicles when we need them and at a competitive price point. The same goes for the satellites themselves. Global competition is healthy. Functioning upstream markets increase our chance of success. It hastens the pace of upstream innovation in otherwise quite thin markets and provides international cooperation in space, which is a global enterprise. If we go from the general more towards the specific, Inmarsat was founded under UN Charter as a global mobile communications satellite operator well over 30 years ago, symbiotic with one mode of global maritime transportation, but rapidly spreading to the adjacent sectors of aeronautical and land for use with requirements for mission-critical connectivity. Classically, these will be in international development and disaster relief, mining operations, media, and with extensive government use. This provision was where there was no wires, where fibre didn't exist, or where terrestrial solutions were unsuitable for one reason or another. Since the beginnings in the age of telex, Inmarsat has taken on systematic technology risk and modernized. User requirements, technology availability, and the financial climate have all evolved, and we've had to make a regular series of calls on when and how to take the next step. Not all of these were obvious, and many were challenging at the time. Present L-band services, which are IP or broadband in nature, are almost unrecognizable from the early services, characterized by bulky terminals, which required specialist configuration, limited throughput, but these were called revolutionary at the time. If we look ahead, our broadband services will be complemented and extended by a high-throughput service called Global Express, which operates in the Ka band, a very high-frequency band, the first satellite of which has already been successfully launched. The core networks will be rendered to users in more intelligent ways, which is a marker for the future, through a technology program we call SEP, which is necessary to meet user expectations of connectivity as a service, enabling value-add applications. Machine-to-machine communications also opens up new vistas in the tracking, telemetry, and control industries, some of which were alluded to in this morning's presentations. Market risk is ever present, but the communities that Inmarsat serves exhibit lengthy cycles in their own right. The story of maritime connectivity is symbiotic with Inmarsat's own development. A digital revolution is disrupting each of our markets, delivering performance improvements and service innovations. Engaging with this trend is the market challenge and opportunity. If we leave with one point, it is probably that one. Maritime is a global regime, often based on ancient maritime common law, set on a global basis. Ship crews require predictable onboard communications and environments in which to operate safely and effectively. Fail-safe communications must always be there. The pace of change is slow, but inexorable. As with the proverbial tanker, to be successful in this market, you must engage for the long term. Aeronautical requires a global ecosystem which maximizes the ability of the aircraft to operate autonomous of logistics constraints, which weigh heavily on aircraft operating margins which are stretched at the best of times. The community is ambitious to modernize and enhance passenger experience, plug oceanic holes in air traffic management systems, and deliver operational improvements. Aviation is not for the faint-hearted. It is risk-averse, technically demanding and complex. It is its own challenge. Supply, production and market challenges aside, the final and fourth area is regulatory. Stability over the lifetime of the satellite is key. Predictable access to radio spectrum, orbital slots, local operating permits where they are required is essential. Well-intended misguided initiatives such as the Unidra Space Assets Protocol impart additional potential risk. Mobile satellite is one of the few truly global industries. Benefits are accrued to users and available as tools for policymakers only when global cooperation prevails. Space has proven resilient to the travails of day-to-day politics, as the UK has proven, for example, by sustaining space growth policy through changing Parliament and administration on a successive basis. Maintaining this special status is perhaps the challenge we should focus on today, and with that I'll conclude opening remarks. Thank you. Well, the communities that we tend to work with are not exactly, let's call them rapid early adopters. The Maritime Labour Convention only came into effect last year. It was signed in 2006 and essentially said that slavery at sea is a bad thing. These are slow and very conservative communities that move on a global basis. You will have international crews coming from Philippines, China, Ukraine, all working next to each other. The environment needs to be very, very predictable. So, with that in mind, and also aviation has a similar sort of regime dynamic to it, so the growth will nominally be expected to be in these areas, in maritime and aviation. There's not going to be a lot of rapid dislocation. The ICT disruption that you'll see in these sectors is going to be a far more gradual but completing process than those evidence in consumer markets.
Thank you. Let's turn to GNSS. Carlos Destelides.
Carl, and thank you to GLAC for providing the GSA the capability to represent the voice of the GNSS community. So first of all, two words on the European GNSS agency, the GSA, which is a regulatory agency within the EU context, specifically devoted to operate and provide services for the EU GNSS. So in a way, quite a unique role in the EU environment. Actually, we are around 110 people based mostly in Prague, but we also have some operational unit here in Paris, in UK and in Madrid. So EU GNSS, EGNOS and Galileo, which together with Copernicus are the two flagship programs of EU. First of all, why Galileo? This is quite a recurring question. I think in this respect some figures might well explain, might well answer to this question. First of all, because about 1/3 of the smartphone are today GNSS enabled, and we're talking about something like 1 billion devices all over the world. We are talking about a marketplace which is worth about 200 billion euro. And in the last few years, and for the next 2-3 years ahead, this market is still growing in the order of 9–10%. Today in Europe, 1/3 of the new cars are equipped with in-car navigation. And finally, as a result of some analysis which we made, we have determined that about 6% of the European GDP is directly or indirectly related to GNSS. So this gives you a dimension of the relevance of satellite navigation, which has entered in our life maybe more than what we could expect. And so Galileo has the ambition to capture a part of this value and provide a tangible benefit for the citizens. It will not be easy because GPS is a standard de facto, is already in place since many years. There is another system called GLONASS, which in the last few years is fully established. And there is a third one which is coming quite quickly, which is the Compass Beidou. So Galileo is catching up, but we believe that we will have something to say in this respect. Our, let's say, pillars will be, first of all, high performance. I have to say that the first testing of the satellites which are already in the air, we already have 4 satellites which are operational, have been proving that the Galileo signal is quite stable, and most of all, the Galileo signal coupled with GPS is proving to provide excellent performances, much better than the GPS plus the GLONASS. Indeed, this is one of the main differentiators vis-à-vis the other systems, because Galileo has been designed to be fully compatible and interoperable with GPS. So, in this respect, what the European GNSS agency is doing to prepare the ground for Galileo? Well, first of all, we are responsible, as of January this year, for EGNOS. EGNOS is an augmentation system of existing GPS, which is already fully operational since 3 years, and is fully used by, first of all, by the Civil Aviation Authority. Today, we have more than 100 airports in Europe which are fully exploiting EGNOS. But indeed, EGNOS is a very transversal system, so many other transport sectors are deeply enjoying this improved performance. So this is for EGNOS. What then are we envisaging for Galileo? What is the agency specifically doing to prepare this market, this complex market? Well, first of all, we have developed a constant dialogue with the user domains. So, coming back to what Mr. De Rosen was saying, the education of the user is quite important. So we have a team which is constantly talking with the road toll user, with the maritime, with the rail sectors, explaining the benefits and trying to well understand which are their needs. Then we are talking with those parties which are essential for the development of the market. For instance, in these months, we are deeply engaged with the chipset and the receiver manufacturer, because as you can easily understand, that to have the chipset enabled for Galileo is key in order to have a wide adoption. And today, even if the system is on the preliminary stage, we have only 4 satellites. Already about 30% of the GNSS enabled receivers are Galileo enabled. And then finally we promote to the extent possible regulation, which of course do not mandate the technology, but disclose the use, the potential of EU GNSS. One good example in this respect is the so-called E112 emergency call, which is in the last few weeks has been approved by the Council and the Parliament, which is indeed promoting the adoption in Europe of Galileo. Last but not least, one important task for the agency is what has been until last year the so-called FP7 project. Now the new one is Horizon 2020. We have in these new 7 years financial perspective double the investment on the development of applications and services. These are the areas where we believe it is the right moment to invest. The order of magnitude of investment over the next 7 years is in the order of 100–120 million euro, and it is worth to underline that it is in this area, so service and application, where the bigger part of the value of the market is. I'd like to conclude by saying that I'm glad that this panel, in a way, has anticipated the convergence on which I do believe between navigation, telecommunication, and hard observation. Many of the panelists here are representing this domain, because I believe that this is the future coming. So in a way, this panel is anticipating this.
How is this working? What is your strategy in order then to make Galileo also successful in the world marketplace?
So yes, certainly coordination, but on the other side we also need to find our competitive position. So first of all, in terms of coordination, yes, we are constantly dialoguing with our colleagues on the other side of the ocean, so with the US. In particular, the coordination is in relation to the public regulated service, which is one of the most, one of the pillars of Galileo. But as well, there are a number of other subjects on which we need to coordinate in terms of frequencies, in terms of as well regulation. But let me also make a point concerning the competitive positioning. So, as I said, one of the advantages of Galileo is to be fully compatible with GPS, which means that at the receiver side, the user will not really see the difference, will only, in terms of cost, will only see an increased performance, and this is very important. On the other side, we believe that Galileo has some differentiators, some important ones, which are, first of all, the state-of-the-art technology, which means very high performance, and as I said, the first tests are confirming this. And as well, we believe there are other important differentiators which, on our view, can make the difference. The first one being a commitment towards the users. The civil nature of the system will allow us to provide, to announce service level performance. And last, Galileo will bring what we call an authentication concept, which is in a way a kind of stamp that the positioning data are indeed true and coming from Galileo. For a number of applications, this can really be a differentiator.
Now let's turn to Earth observation. Philip Pham, the first presentation you will have. Yes.
Thank you. So moving from telecommunications and navigation to now the Earth observation domain, wanted just to show a few pictures and then deliver a few messages. I'm talking about geoinformation, which is now in Airbus Defence and Space, and spot image being a subsidiary and legal entity within geointelligence. So which is what yes. This is what we use. So we must keep track about the satellite fleet, which is operated up there to serve us on the ground. We'll go through a rapid overview of what we do, then what we see as trends and business models, and how we view new entrants and the open data policy. Geointelligence remains very important, and it's coming from a legacy of expertise, coming from the old original spot creation through Infoterra, then Astrium, then Airbus, but more than 30 years and now 40 of legacy. So we don't forget we are using satellites and complex constellation of Earth observation spacecraft from Spot 5 to our partners with Deimos, Formosat 2, DMC, but also last but not least all the Spot 6 and now Spot 7 soon, and with the Pleiades 1A, 1B spacecraft, for which we will have as well to make sure that there will be follow-up constellation operations. We take these pictures with a big variety from our partners, but also from our constellation, in radar imagery, but also in optical imagery, high resolution and very high resolution, down to 50 centimeter resolution. And obviously, what we are doing with those pictures is to serve a variety of business segments and customers. So progress has been made to make also side products, both in optical imagery and in radar imagery, to provide our customers not only with raw data, but also with a certain number of processed products to help delivering services in maritime, in monitoring, in data management, in emergency services, either through direct access services or remote data management services. Our customers are quite numerous, and we try to continue to build this customer base. All the segments are also expanding, as was discussed this morning, either in monitoring, in oil and gas, in defense, in emergency, in agriculture, in location-based services, in maritime, where a lot of various markets for direct applications. We are serving a worldwide footprint with more than 100 countries, with a big network of resellers which has been expanded, and with a lot of direct receiving stations across the world. So what we try to do is to really participate with our portfolio of satellite imagery to providing our customers with services for a better life on Earth. But where are we now? What are the trends and the business models? We have three business models, basically, as far as GEO is concerned. First is the retail business with radar and optical imagery and standard products sales. We have a second one, a second pillar, mainly with telemetry and processing systems that we implement in receiving countries. We have more than 36 direct receiving stations across the world. And last but not least, we are focusing on a certain number of solution services in Earth observation imagery, which are mainly project basis in the fields of maritime, in the fields of global monitoring, agriculture, geology, with a certain number of supporting solutions and softwares, either to process imagery or to deliver data, or to distribute and dispatch through various levels of services, the data and the solutions to our customers. What is the current situation we are facing today? Lots and lots of data are available. The space game is moving away from the traditional government investment programs. The investments are moving to end services rather than to the platforms or to the engineering-based hardware. And we have also a high budgetary pressure, in particular in Europe and North America, even if Earth observation remains a priority for the leading space agencies. Last 10 years, we have been launching 136 Earth observation satellites from 32 countries, and the trend is even bigger for the next decade, with almost 300 spacecraft over the next 10 years for more than 42 countries. So what do we need? Indeed, a collaboration with the public sector and partners, otherwise we will not be strong enough. We need to make sure that we find a certain complementarity between geoinformation services, the cost of hardware and the cost of developing solutions and delivering services. And we need also to find the way through the exploitation, the access of data with all what is going on in the world today, with value-added applications, with easy formats, easy access, and smart dissemination. The challenges forward for Earth observation are really mainly, even if it's not classical, we are evolving towards a commercial business. We still have national data issues and sovereignty. We are just in between the commercial and the governmental, let's say, business model, not fully on one side, not fully on the other side. We still have to make sure to comply with security of data dissemination, depending on the critical missions. And despite the challenges, we need to continue to invest commercially. So, what are the business-to-business trends? Well, first, the Google Earth effect is increasing expectations from everybody, customers and us all. We need to find new consumption business models to provide the data fastest to the desktop. We need to further dig into market domain expertise for better value added. We have many markets, many users, commercial or not, and we need now to sell final solutions and not only raw pixels. And we definitely witness a fast-growing use of the geospatial information. Now what we witness as well is the key will be freshness, will be reactivity, and will be the guarantee to deliver our customers on demand. So just a last comment on free data policy. So indeed we need to take that into account, to find the right balance, to complement the traditional Earth observation with all the other sensors like UAVs, to provide new services like video from space, to complement and drive premium services with respect to free data and open data policies, and to make sure that we find the right collaboration steps with data providers to provide better services. So this is what I wanted to deliver today as a message. We are in a rapid evolving world. We need to continue to understand the customer needs beyond the pixels, and we need to move as well from the initial techno push to a sustainable growth with the right balance between users and providers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I would like to speak about a few words about our Spazio and the GEOS, and then focus on two major developments that we are pursuing in order to develop the market and our business. Actually, I'm very pleased that this conference, even if it is organized by two international organizations like IAF and UNESCO, is dealing with markets, because I think that markets are a strong force that can push the development of new technologies and new services. Is the red button? Okay. Telespazio activity is divided into 4 business units, named operations, space application and systems, network and connectivity, and geoinformation. In operations, we basically operate satellites in orbit and and we followed them from the launch and early orbit phase. In space systems and applications, we design satellite systems and we engineer and implement ground segments that then we use to operate satellites. And then we have two business units which are dealing more with applications. Network and connectivity deals with telecommunication of any kind, broadband, broadcasting, and MilSatCom. Whilst in geoinformation we deal with applications, geoinformation layers, data distribution, not only cosmos but also low emission, and data port services, so for reception, archiving, and processing of data. Actually, this last business unit called the geoinformation is operated by Telespazio through the new company called Aegeos that Telespazio has formed with the Italian Space Agency in order to commercialize worldwide the Cosmos kind of data and applications. The first development I wanted to focus on is about the Galileo public regulated service. In addition to the open and free of charge Galileo service, this service is providing a much more reliable and accurate service that is meant to provide more secure and reliable services for critical transport and emergency services. Yeah. Okay, and this deals with air traffic control, search and rescue, fire brigades, and other civil protection activities and law enforcement in terms of border control and humanitarian aids. In this field, the Telespazio is very much present, not only because it operates one of the two Galileo control centers at our Fucino Space Center, but also because thanks to the EGNOS experience gained the past years, Telespazio is participating to the testing phase of the Galileo public regulated services, and as it was anticipated already, the results from this testing phase are very, very encouraging in terms of accuracy that we can achieve with respect to the GPS signal. So we think that this business opportunity is going to be very significant, especially when we talk about institutional international markets. The second focus I want to make is about a number of application operational services that we developed in the past years thanks to significant product and service development through competitive R&D projects co-funded with the European Union. And most important, through a strong involvement of the end users. These are maritime surveillance, emergency management, and land monitoring. Let's focus on the first one and give you a very quick overview of how it works. Over a certain area of interest, which has been defined by a member state, we acquire images, and within 25 minutes from the data transmission from the satellite, we perform OSP identification, ship identification, and we produce a report that we give to EMSA, the European Maritime Safety Agency. Then European Maritime Safety Agency provides information to the Coast Guard, activating aerial or boat means on the local area. And then they also activate the Destination Port Authority. The Destination Port Authority is then making an inspection on board the ship, the suspect ship, and if they are found to be guilty, then there is a report to the flagged state, and there is some administration of a fine. This type of service has reduced in the last 6 years the pollution in the Mediterranean Sea by a factor of 50%. So there is a strong deterrent effect that has been put in place by the European Maritime Safety Agency. And this service is operated age 24. Second service is about emergency management. And this works this way. The European Commission is in charge of coordinating interaction with the European member states. And they provide us who the user is, where the event happened, what type of event, so that we can initially plan the best satellite for the specific application and the one that is passing before others. So this is typically a very multi-mission exercise. After that, we go and search for all the data available before the event. So we find all what is available and we prepare within 6 hours from activation the pre-event map. The pre-event map is then combined with the fresh data collected by the satellite, and then we prepare the post-event map, which is produced within 3 hours from data acquisition. And what is most important, there is a portfolio of products which have been developed in the past 5-6 years with the major civil protection users in Europe, so they know exactly what they're going to get, what are the specifications, what are the accuracies, and what they are used for. A third, operational application service, is about land monitoring. In the past years, we've done on a competitive tender the whole mapping with interferometric analysis of Italy. So you see here a map of Italy. In green are the areas which are not moving, not subject to landslides or subsidence, and then progressively in yellow and red the areas which are subject to these factors. And this project, which is the largest that I know in terms of interferometric analysis, has been used by the Italian Ministry of Environment to make new regulations and adopt new standards for building new houses and reduce risk of collapsing. We are now extending again another international tender this analysis in some other areas in Italy using Cosmos Family data that will provide a factor of 100 more data and information about the Italian territory. So what is really unique of these 3 operational application services is that they are based on a pure multi-mission approach. So we are not using only Cosmos Comet, but we are using RadioSat, TerraSat, Digital Globe, Pleiad, Spot, IRS, and we use what is the best and what is the first to come in order to serve the end user. We can provide a very efficient service at a more affordable cost, and we can have the possibility to launch, let's say, a more effective and efficient service model. Actually, I think that what we are entering in is a phase of transformation where we go from projects to services. And this is a key step if we really want to enlarge our market basis. What we are suffering in Earth civilization in general is the fact that we have still a too small user community. In order to enlarge this user community, we need to offer more services on one side, but we need to offer these services at a much more affordable price. And sharing the price, the cost of these services among a wider user community is a very key element. Thank you for your attention.
Well, in Deimos we are on one side, on the upstream, we work in the infrastructure development, we work in Galileo development, we work in interplanetary missions, but we also look to downstream, we also look to the market, and we are active in 2 out of the 3 markets. We are working on the navigation and in Earth observation. On the navigation, we have a location-based service, we have a platform called Kiros working for about 10 years, and we offer satellite-based positioning for personal animal objects. We have thousands of customers all over the world. We track camels in Mauritania, trucks in Ghana, oil and gas vehicles in Colombia. That's an interesting market. We're using GPS, we're using GLONASS, We will use soon Galileo. This is, we are waiting for Galileo to increase our domain. And we are very active in these ones, it's a long time. But as well in Earth observation. In Earth observation, we run, we have a program of 2 satellites. Demo 1 was launched in 2009. We partnered with Astrium, as was presented before by Philippe. And this is a 20-meter resolution satellite doing about 4 million square kilometers per day. It's already 5 years in orbit. In about 15 days, we launched Deimos 2, 19th of June. This is a satellite developed in collaboration with Satellite Initiative in South Korea. This is a final product will be set 75 centimeters to go to the very high resolution. That means together Deimos 1 and Deimos 2, we're in the optical domain and we cover all type of application from 20 meters down to 75 centimeter resolution. This morning, Barbara presented the market. In fact, the Earth observation markets, there are 2 segments. There is the data providers and the value-add providers. We are in both places. We have our own satellites and we sell data to other companies, but we do also final products. Then, in fact, this market is 2 markets. It's data provider and value-add products. In fact, we're active in many markets. We're active in agriculture, was presented by Barbara this morning very well. We work for the US Department of Agriculture, the USDA. We do the full United States every 2 weeks, cloud-free. We work also on environment, we work on development, crisis management as well, the key point, deforestation, and in fact for crisis on the right side, the very first picture of Japan after the tsunami was taken by Deimos to be provided to the Charter of Disaster of the United Nations. That means we are an actor for the last 5 years in Earth observation and the last 8 years in location-based services. And going back to the question of our chairman, what are the problems with the markets? I'm looking more to the markets. I see general problems and specific problems. General problems has been appointed for Michel de Rosan because it's market awareness is the first problem. Most of our customers, they don't know that we have solution for them. And this is very generic in all type of space-based application. The second one is the inertia. When you tell people that they can do things faster, better, and cheaper in a different way, there's a big inertia to change the way they were doing things for 40 years. The third problem, basically in Earth observation, is more, there is a lack of standardization. There are many vegetation indices, there are many products, but we need an effort of standardization and create a kind of homologation or certification unit. And another problem is financial schemes. For a telecom satellite, there are financial schemes, it's very well known, but not for Earth observation. 8 years ago, I went to see the bank, the director of a bank, and I asked for money to build, launch, operate, and commercialize a satellite. Well, the banker looked at me like if I were extraterrestrial. I mean, what this guy is telling me, it's not easy. Huh? I remember the answer. The answer was, it's a pity. If that would be a real estate, we will give you the money, because real estate price never drop. Well, you know now that those banks are being saved in Spain because they went to bankrupt with this philosophy. But we need a mechanism to finance this type of project. It's something else in the United States. The good example is Skybox. Skybox, very brilliant young graduate from Stanford, raised 100 million, nearly 100 million. I mean, this is impossible to happen in Europe or in any other country. I mean, we need this mechanism for financing this type of projects. Well, this is a summary of the problem that I see. There are specific problems of Earth observation. I mean, this morning, most of the speakers said about the need of open and free data. This is fine, but there is a problem on the market for the data provider. I mean, we did an investment for Deimos 1, we sell data, more or less we survive, but as soon as Sentinel-2 is coming with free data, we'll be killed. I mean, free and open data, it will create in the value-added chain some jobs, but it will destroy a lot of jobs on the upstream. That means potentially that some jobs may be created, for sure some of the jobs will be destroyed. I mean, I know this is controversial because most of you probably think that open and free data policy is the way to work, but you have to be careful. If you enter into an ecosystem and you influence this ecosystem, many things may happen. I mean, I'm sure that will help a lot for downstream application, but you have to be careful of all the different actors, and some of the actors may die in this move. Well, this is my summary of potential problems and how things can be work better in the market. Thank you very much for your attention.
We will have two more views on the marketplace from two different angles. The first is by Eurysi, and this is Stefan de Meyer, the Secretary General.
Good afternoon. I'm Stefan de Meyer from Eurysi, and I'll start to introduce my organization because maybe I'm a bit an outsider in this panel, not being a company, an association. We are an association, and our members on the right side are basically the space community and space agencies who have given us a mandate to approach user communities on the left side, local and regional authorities, small, medium-sized enterprises from outside the space sector. Actually, this is 25 years ago. At the basis of Eurysi was Professor Hubert Curien and Mr. Jacques Delors from the European Commission. And they had a vision for Eurysi to promote the use of satellite services applications to the benefit of society, for instance, in protecting the environment. What did we do with that? Well, we started to build a user program, and in that user program, we approached user communities, and we tried to approach as much as possible non-space associations, persons, companies, etc. This is an overview of where we were in the last years, and I'm very proud we were able to connect with 253 organizations, of which 170 were completely out of the space sector, and we brought them in contact with then the space sector. This is basically the tool we are using. We sincerely believe that to convince people to use space applications, you need an ambassador, and the best ambassador to promote space within a non-space community is a person from within that community that is already using a space solution. So what we use are good practices presented from an end-user perspective. Two examples here. Well, we have a website where you can browse a lot of examples. But for instance, the Alsace region in France is protecting their hamsters. They are in that way also complying with some European legislation, and they're using Earth observation for that. That's one example. At the bottom, another example, a small company in Finland is using Earth observation. Not only Earth observation, but Earth observation as a part of a solution in dynamic urban planning. And very particular also for that company is that they're coming from the gaming industry. So they're using a completely different technology, active in a completely different domain, but with using geo-information, they can create a new service which is to the benefit of society. This is a little bit of publicity, although it's very soon, so I don't expect you to travel tomorrow, for instance, to Lyon. But that's to show the way how we operate. We set up events not with the space community, but we partner with regions, like the region Rhône-Alpes in this case, with European projects, Regions for Green Road, and we talk about a subject, renewable energy, and then try to bring in a satellite solution. We don't come with the satellite solution first. We first listen to what is needed, and then we try to see if we can accommodate or help at least to solve problems. Another one is Digital Society next week in Belfast. With this introduction now, I would like to very quickly touch a few things which have been said here. The value-adding chain, the way from the satellite, how the data moves to the end user. Well, I think what is very important is the very last, let's say in logistics, they would say the logistics of the last kilometer. The same is valid for data and images. How to reach the last person to use it. And there, I think what the mindset should be, and I was very happy to hear that already around the table here, is that people are not waiting for pixels. They're waiting for information, for interpretation of data, to be able to take informed decisions. So this specific dedicated service is very important. And that's a challenge, because we heard also that we need demand aggregation and we need a bigger market, but often the end user is a very small unit and need a very tailored service. So probably there is a need in this value-adding chain for specialized small companies also to take the images, the data, and to turn it in a very specific service. So but that's a challenge. A solution where I want to refer to is maybe coming from the communication industry. We've been working, for instance, with a project called Saber. Eutelsat is one of the driving factors behind it. And they have shown a very smart way to mobilize funds to invest in satellite solutions. Funds not coming from the space industry, not coming from the space community, but local funds, structural funds, for instance, from the European Union. And within that project, for instance, they've written a handbook for regions how to obtain structural funds to invest in satellite communication for broadband. And maybe that's a solution that can be transferred also to the other sectors, Earth observation and navigation. And maybe the last thing I would put forward here is, and that's again to communication, but in connection with Galileo and navigation, the location-based services and more track and trace solutions are often using mobile phone-based solutions. And I sincerely believe that actually the satellite component communication is much more performant, and in certain cases the only good solution, especially if safety is an issue, if it's remote, etc. If something happens with an asset in an area where you don't have mobile coverage, you want to know, and the satellite solution there is the solution. And I think there is a huge potential actually to compete with mobile operators, and the technical soundness of the satellite communication, I think, is overruling everything. So I think with those three statements, thank you very much.
So now to the last marketplace, and this is the launch sector, and we have Jacques Breton from Ariane Space.
Is it? Yes. So thank you for this opportunity you give me to give a few words on the launch service market and on Ariane Space. Ariane Space, as you know, has been established as the first commercial space transportation company in the world. And as you mentioned, Kay, we are strategic as we are an enabler of all the applications we discussed right now. And this is of particular importance, and we have the illustration of this fact, as due to geopolitics, the access to some of our competitors, particularly in Russia, may be difficult or even impossible in the coming months or years. So this is why this European independent access to space is so important. Of course, it's important for, let's say, our institutions, but we also have to be available and affordable, which means that we have to be on the commercial market. So how can we define our market? Well, it's very simple. It's in fact represented in this panel. We have most of our customers here. As we are a space transportation company, it's easy to define our market, and we define it according to where we have to deliver the spacecraft we launch. So first, there is the accessible GTO market. So this is mostly a commercial market. It represents 2/3 of our order book, about 2.7 billion euros today. And the majority of our customers are private telecommunications operators, like Eutelsat, which is represented today by Michel de Rosen, CEO, with a few exceptions in secure communications for the European governments. We already have launched Athena Fidus, and we are going to launch CICRA by the end of this year for the French and Italian Ministry of Defense. And also for meteorology, we are going to launch for EUMETSAT, Meteosat second generation in 2015. We also address, let's say, what we call the non-GTO market. This is mainly and mostly an institutional market for Europe, with a variety of applications that we mentioned: telecommunications, navigation, Earth observation, and science. The majority of our customers are European bodies, like the European Commission. We already mentioned Galileo, mentioned as well Copernicus, or the European Space Agency, with a lot of scientific missions, probe to other planets, the servicing also of the International Space Station with the Automated Transfer Vehicle, ATV, that we are going to launch in a couple of months. It covers also satellite constellations for telecommunications, let's say outside of these institutions, for commercial customers, like the O3B programs. And we mentioned Earth observation satellites, which is a booming market, which is great for us. So how do we respond to this market? We operate a large family of vehicles from French Guiana, the light launchers, Vega, medium-sized launchers, Soyuz, and the Ariane 5, the heavy launch vehicle. Ariane 5 mainly used for telecommunications satellite, for GTO launches, but also can be used and will be used for the deployment of the Galileo constellation, or to serve, as I mentioned, the International Space Station. We now are in the process, and this is one of our challenges, to, let's say, ramp up the use of this launch vehicle family, bringing it up to speed. With Ariane, it's already the case. We are, say, in a stable operating phase, 59 successes in a row, and now we are increasing, let's say, the launch rate with Soyuz and with Vega. And of course, we are doing so by keeping, let's say, our main characteristics and assets of these markets, which is reliability and availability. And of course, as we are facing competition, we have also to work on our competitiveness, let's say, bringing our prices close to what our customers are expecting. So finally, we are also preparing the future, let's say, participating in the debate which is going on right now on the future of the launch vehicles in Europe, evolutions of Ariane 5 and new launch vehicle in the future.
I would now like to bring one specific question to the podium, and this is the question of where are the problems in your respective markets. Miguel already touched upon that. There are and might be problems with awareness. We discussed that already, with the customer base, with regulation. Where are the problems, and how would you like to see the community also to cope with that? Who would like to start? Yes.
I'd like to mention three. One is insufficient technological neutrality. We see this, for instance, in Brussels, where directives produced by the Commission are sometimes written in a way that has been influenced by the telcos who think and breathe terrestrial technologies. And so then when regions or cities or departments are to issue auctions for bids, well, they are written in a way that favors, and sometimes favors, terrestrial technologies or even eliminates satellite technologies. So that is one barrier. The second barrier to success is spectrum. We breathe through spectrum. Okay, it is our oxygen. And the spectrum we use creates appetites from others. This is a real topic. I mean, not just long term, it's short term. At WRC 50 next year, there will be a big fight around the spectrum that we use and need to provide the services to the people and companies that need them. And then the third example of obstacle is nationalism. Our satellites provide are better used if they are used for many countries, obviously. Okay? That's what they do so well. They can serve, one satellite can serve 50 countries. Well, because satellites are, let's say, seen as prestigious, some countries are tempted to have their own satellites. And so this is a waste of money, of spectrum resources, of energy, and it creates unfair and unnecessary competition for the other satellites. And then I'll just give a fourth one, just for the sake of it. ITU has a different task in managing the orbital resources. And sometimes it is difficult for ITU to resist a very aggressive lobbying from countries who do not really respect ITU rules, but say, look, I'm a sovereign nation, so I just do it my way. I'll give you a concrete example. ITU rules, and by the way, United Nations principles and probably UNESCO principles, say that freedom of information is very important. Well, some countries believe that freedom of information is not a good principle and that their governments have the right to protect their people against information provided from outside. That is not good because it is a clear limitation of the right of people to be informed. So these are just 4 illustrations of obstacles that need a lot of energy to be addressed.
Let me take the issue of frequency management, the provision and the access to the frequency spectrum. I think this is a problem not only for telecom operators, but also for Earth observation, but even worse, I understand, for areas like astronomy, which are the weakest, or do have the weakest lobby in the right places. Are we doing enough? Are the policymakers, those in the telecom authorities, are listening enough to the space community?
This is a conversation which is very well rehearsed, both at the European level through the satellite operators, but also at the national level as well. If I look at a number of different telecommunication regulators around the world, you look at where space sits within them. It is a mid-level function. It is not an executive function. These people are not bringing back the same sort of revenues to the national budget as a 3G or a 4G auction. So they get less recognition at the head of government level as well, which is a systematic problem. But then, to balance that, the country generally has a number of strategic objectives that it can only realize by having in place global infrastructure, such as satellites. But these debates don't often come together. And sometimes they don't come together because the telecommunications law was written to take account of mobile terrestrial. And we see this, and you can point to multiple examples. So the issue of radio spectrum is a very serious one. Space is very, very exposed to the presence of a functioning global regime administered through the ITU, but is compromised on the local level, and that settlement needs to be remade every few years. It's a very precarious situation, but one which somehow has worked so far, but we should not take it for granted.
The problems in the marketplace for Earth observation.
I think we've been through a variety of business models in the last 20 years, from all governmental, institutional, to fully private or to duality. And we are facing now the renewal of the Constellation spacecraft, and we witness that it's quite difficult to find the right partnership, the right balance between institution, commercial, defense, and also due to the level of investment to find the funding scheme right from the start to make sure that we will arrive on time, not too late, because technologies is moving fast. The other competitive offers also. And I think we do not have yet fully found the right business models, including the right partnership with users and on the infrastructure as well, because all the next steps in the infrastructure are still significantly funded by governments.
So maybe from the GNSS perspective, the challenges ahead in view of the market uptake, I think the major challenge today for Galileo is the fulfillment of the promises of Galileo. Galileo now has to gain in credibility. For a number of different reasons, in a way, Galileo is late, and now is to the public sector to get there. What we see is that the market is really eager to take up. We have different signals which prove this statement. So it's now up to the European Union to prove that this, somebody say, heavy machine which has been set up between the European Commission, the European Space Agency, and the GSA is delivering. And this is indeed in the next coming 1 or 2 years the most challenging, let's say, focus which I see for EU.
Very much. Please allow us 2 more minutes, because I want to make one more quick round, and this is that we now have a new European Parliament. We will soon have a new European Commission. So what would be your one single wish to these institutions?
Well, I would say that my hope is to continue to have the major European programs flying on with Arianespace, which means that for us to be able to provide the solutions that meets the European Commission requirements, that is to say, first, it's European programs as well, the launch vehicles are European programs, they provide the jobs, but also they have, of course, to be affordable, to be cost effective, so there we have some work to do. It's something that we are doing right now, implementing that, because of the overhand, let's say, being on the commercial market. What the market expects is quality of service and price. Quality of service, we have demonstrated what we are able to do and what we can do, and there is no question there. We have a problem on price. Price means we're working with the exchange rate, but there we cannot do anything. So we are working on our costs to provide the best solution at the best price.
Yeah, my input would be that the European Commission should increase a better policy coordination between their space policy and other sectoral policies. if they are on one hand building Galileo, Copernicus, they should also inform people that they can use Copernicus and Galileo for implementing policies. If the Commission is making it an obligation to report on biodiversity, they should at least mention that this is possible through Copernicus. If they enforce a directive to different regions in different countries, and each country is implementing it in a different way, why not suggesting at least that Copernicus can give a uniform way to report on obligations, which would avoid a lot of problems then in cooperation. That would be my message.
Well, my wish would be the European Union immediately to have a very long-term plan, an ambitious plan in the space business. We are very lucky, is very happy because Copernicus was funded, but it was a big open mark till very late. We should have it funded much earlier. Then we need a long-term plan. We opened our subsidiary in UK last year. We met the minister, and the minister told us which is the UK space plan until 2030. With this plan, this is the ambition, this is not my political party, it's an agreement for the political parties. Then if we have a clear European perspective for 20 years, then companies can invest. I mean, if European goes to free medium resolution, then company will go to high resolution or to greater. That means a very ambitious, a very long-term plan will not in advance.
Personally, I would ask the new Commission to better balance the funding of space infrastructure with the funding of application services. And by saying that, I don't mean to reduce the funding for the space infrastructure, which is absolutely necessary. And this, through ESA, has already a mid and long-term perspective, and together also with the commercial operators. What I mean is that we should incentivize more and more governments, and even more the local regions, to adopt the Copernicus application services. Many times we hear that various countries do not fully exploit the money made available by the European Commission. And this unused money is not producing any result for anybody. So if the European Commission could find out a mechanism to incentivize the adoption of Copernicus services, maybe even supporting a little bit more the end users, the institutional users on this side, I think this would very much benefit the whole industry.
Just as a complement, mainly simplify the funding, the supporting structures, and make sure, perhaps like telecommunications, that there's no bias with respect to the offers, including between Europe and US, like for political recall commune or for the other things, where we need to make the best use of the European assets.
For GNSS, what we need now is stability. So the wish is indeed not to have a new evolution or revolution. We have the financial perspective. I believe there has been so far a clear political support. I have no reason to believe that this will be brought again by the new Commission. So the real expectations is stability.
Thank you. Well, I guess I'm British, so if I say too much, my passport will get taken from me when I get back to Pancras. So I'll try and balance it a little bit. Which is that, first of all, being British, I hope that the MEPs that my citizens have elected turn up and engage constructively. Anything's possible. Often when we've turned up in the European Union, in Brussels in particular, and we've met with policymakers who have an interest in space, one of the first questions they've asked us is, well, how many satellites did you build last year? And then we explain that we're an operator in the value chain where it all sits together. And it's become apparent to us that the satellite operators fall a little bit between two chairs. If you go to the people in charge of telecommunications, they're very concerned with 3 and 4G. They're not so concerned with satellites. space can tend to focus on upstream manufacturing, etc. So we fall a little bit between two chairs. So my ask would be to project powerfully to make sure that there is a clear understanding of the operator capabilities which are already available for EU policymakers to make aware, so that they're aware of the satellites that Inmarsat has invested in, which are commercial, which are financed, that can then be made available for use across a whole range of different areas.
I would wish that we put space at the heart of Europe and Europe at the heart of space. What does that mean? Europe at the heart of space, that Europe remains a leader in the space world, the best that it defines and executes the best launcher in the world to live up to the challenge of SpaceX, that it keeps a vibrant satellite manufacturing industry and a vibrant satellite operator industry, and that it develops innovations that in space and on ground can provide better services. And put space at the heart of Europe means to use everything we bring to continue to change the lives of people and make the global village that McLuhan was dreaming about 30 years ago a reality.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this first plenary. Apologies that we took a little longer, but I think it was extremely worthwhile to listen to the assessments and the ideas of our panelists, and I'm sure you join in appreciation with an applause.